Okay, so we've got a few rules here to work of square roots to deal with. Okay, so say I'm taking the square root of a times b. I can rewrite that as the square root of a times the square root of b, and vice versa. So if I had something that looked like this, I could rewrite it like that. So where does that do us any good? Well, we're dealing with something like the square root of 20. Just like when we reduce fractions, we want to make our square roots look prettier. Okay, we can reduce them in a sense. How do we do that? Well, I can rewrite 20 in a lot of different ways. Okay, I could write 20 as 20 times 1, which isn't very useful. I could write it as 10 times 2. For our purposes, is that useful? But I could also write it as 4 times 5. Okay, well, what's 4 times 5? It's 20. So this is a way to rewrite that. So I could rewrite that again by using this rule. That's the same as the square root of 4 times the square root of 5. Well, what is the square root of 4? I know some of you just said 2. Close. Plus or minus 2. And square root of 5, well, we can put that in our calculator, figure it out, but we want to do things exactly. So we want an exact answer. So sometimes you won't see the plus or minus written into something like this, and the reason people will give you, and I'm okay with that reasoning, is that you haven't taken the square root of the 5 yet. The plus or minus is still hidden in there with the square root of the 5. But I find that at this level, it's good to include that plus or minus so that we remember it's there later on when we start doing harder things. All right. Here's another something we have here. The square root of a over the square root of b. Okay, well, we can rewrite something as the square root of a over square root of b. Sorry. I wanted that to be a different number. Okay. And we can also work our way backwards if we need to. So this problem here is going to help us out. We can rewrite the square root of 49 over 5. Now notice how I put this little lip on the end of the square root. And what that does, that helps me indicate where the square root ends. I have very sloppy handwriting, and so it's a way for me to be able to determine exactly where I want that square root to end. I also make sure that the square root goes down to where it's even with the bottom number. Okay, but I can rewrite this as the square root of 49 over the square root of 5. Okay, which could be rewritten as, well, what's the square root of 49? It is, please don't say 7, say plus or minus 7 over square root of 5. Okay, now some of us might think we're done all of a sudden. Well, we don't like to have roots, okay, down in the denominator. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of that root. How I'm going to do that is, well, I'm going to multiply this fraction by the number 1. Okay. Now there's lots of different ways to write the number 1. I can write it as 10 over 10, 50 over 50, or in this case I can rewrite it as the square root of 5 over square root of 5. Right? It's 1. We multiply something by 1, we don't change it. Well, what's the point in doing that? Well, the point is that if I use this rule here, I've got plus or minus 7 times the square root of 5 over square root of 5 times square root of 5. Well, I can rewrite this here using this rule to go backwards as plus or minus 7 root 5 over square root of 5 times 5. Well, what is 5 times 5? It's 25. What's the square root of 25? Plus or minus 5. So since I already have one plus or minus in there, I don't need another. That would be my answer.